So during this time, I say, I just spent, it says, so those of you on my social media, my blog know I just spent the last several days with my cat dying. She was dying. 2 years ago, at about this same time of year, first my dog died, and I put her to sleep, so that happened a little faster, but she was dying quite rapidly of a blood disorder, which is kind of weird and strange. And then after that, I went home to my mom's because my stepfather was dying, and there's a variety of things there. One, that my brother and I had to fight to keep my stepfather out of yet more interventions. It's the medical profession is designed to intervene, and the doctors are never designed to say, except for my father, bless, thanks be to God, and also the one who gave me the cat that just died. So sort of that doctors are trained to suggest something else. Oh, doctor, what can you do? What can you do? And of course, what they could do is watching my cat die, you can prolong it a little longer, but you're gonna die when you're 18 years old and you're a cat, or when you're 84 years old and you've been in a wheelchair for 4 years with a spinal fluid leak, right? My stepfather was dying, and my brother and I had to fight to keep him simply in like hospice rather than yet another emergency room visit. Now that's interesting, but it's also very interesting that, so therefore we were in the hospitals in autumn, winter, November, December of 2020, allegedly in the time when it was all the most dangerous. One, the hospitals were completely empty. There's reports from Texas. We were in Texas. Reports from, oh, Paul Joseph Watson just did that video showing all of the TikToker nurses doing all those dances. Oh, we're under such stress. We're under such stress. And it's like, the stress was probably the pretense that everybody was about to drop dead constantly. How they were able to do those videos, I have no idea. But the hospitals that we saw our stepfather in as he was passing, the VA, the emergency room and stuff, they were not overflowing. They were empty. Whole wards were. It's like there was one ward open when I went to the VA to see him as he was dying. So the level of ability that people had to believe the narrative makes it sound even silly, right? To believe that we were in the level of danger that we were. We wanted to be. I think the part is, I think everyone wanted to be. They wanted to feel like they were in a crisis.
You've activated a thought, which I think I'll share, because that'll give you an idea of why I was so level-headed and skeptical about the bodies dropping down in the streets, and why everybody did actually want to believe that it was happening when it wasn't happening. When I was in Tanzania, there was a ferry capsize. They have these giant passenger ferries. They're not giant, but they're getting people back and forth from the islands to the mainland. And like everything else in Africa, it's overloaded. They don't have a capacity limit. It's just what we think it can take, and everything, God willing, will be fine.
We'll all get on it before it starts to sink.
Yeah, exactly. Inshallah, it'll be fine. With zero safety considerations, there's no life jackets. There's like a human pile on top of this boat. And anyway, I forget the year, but while I was there, one of these boats capsized in the middle of the night on one of its longer journeys across this particular channel of water. Most of the women and children can't swim, and the men can swim. So, well, if they can swim. Anyway, I got a phone call in the morning from a friend of mine who was a doctor there. His wife's a nurse. And they had another friend, another acquaintance of mine. They're all doctors. So the first thing they get is phone calls that this has happened. He called me and he said, "Do you want to come and have a look?" People can think this is quite macabre, but they were offering me to come, have a look, and also help out because, at the time it was like whoever can help is going to help. There's no emergency services. I said, sure. when a ferry of 2,500 people capsizes, you end up with a lot of evidence of death everywhere. And in a country like that, it's not hidden and it's not, cordoned off. They don't put sheets and things up to hide it from everybody. So can you imagine 2,500 people dying in a single capsizing? I mean, it was obvious that there was a lot of death everywhere. And in that kind of environment, people are much more calm about it than you would expect. Because I think in that culture, they're still very aware of death. It's not kind of tucked away. They live with their elderly. They see the dead. It's just a completely different approach to everything. That's what I was expecting when everybody said we're being hit with COVID. It's coming. It's going to kill everybody. I thought, okay, this is what it's going to look like. I've seen this scene before. Right. I was in a hospital in Tanzania when a ferry had just capsized, and it was full of people that were surviving or had just failed to survive, partial drowning or whatever had happened to them during the night. So it's messy. There really should have been bodies on the streets, Doc. So
I think so. This is good.
Expectation.
One, there's two ways this go. One, the meme right now is Saruman looking at his orc. CDC director circa 2025. Do you know how the vax first came to be? They were human once, tricked by the dark powers, injected and mutated, a ruined, terrible form of life. What Tolkien understood and what the elves actually are proof of is the problem with the desire for immortality. And the Númenóreans, yes. if the Rings of Power had actually done something good with the story and dealt with the lust of the Númenóreans for eternal life, which is why they end up drowning their own land, versus people I think, and this goes back to what you were saying about the hierarchy and the equalitarian, and that people actually wanted, looking at those horses, right? You wanted some kind of differentiation in power between normal people and horse people, but you also wanted some kind of it's perverse, because you say everybody was wearing masks and getting these vaccinations and such to avoid dying, but what they were actually allegedly but what they were actually doing it in the context of was the kind of thrill that we were in such a dangerous situation that you could possibly die if you didn't wear a mask. They wanted it. They actually, I got that sense. I certainly got that sense talking to some of my family, that they wanted that level of potential danger.
They never scratched the itch. There's a lot of people that should have moved to the third world. Or,
see, they're just like, and I say, I'm a fencer. I get, you get stabbed on a regular basis in practice. You know what it's like to have someone, it's like you've got your adrenaline going. Life actually matters because you actually have something to fight. We don't have enough adventure. We simply don't have an adventure and trial and challenge. And it's, I think it is kind of that simple. If people are bored.
I think you're right. Sounds really strange, but I'm going through all of the people that were kind of responding to the mandate and to the lockdown and the curfew, the imprisonment. We were imprisoned.
Oh yeah,
I've been imprisoned, which is why the Atlantic suggestion that we just like give amnesty and forget about it. Imprisonment is kind of hard to forget.
Right.
But a lot of people were bored, and then everyone that was protesting, we had stuff going on in our lives that we didn't need any additional thrill added on top of, like you realize, oh God, this is the only thing that certain people have had to worry about for a very long time. Like seriously, this is first world problems.
It gave them purpose. It's a sort of, to follow the protocol. It gives you meaning and ritual and things like that. but people love an emergency. They always, and when you're talking about the ferry disaster, right? It's like any kind of emergency. Suddenly, one, you have an excuse. This is what I wrote about in the blog, the COVID ring blog post. Is it gave everyone an excuse not to do other stuff, right? It's like, oh, the virus. Oh, I can't do anything because of the virus. Oh, and that back in 2020, that was all of my colleagues, all of my campus colleagues saying, oh, the virus, and they would be very gloomy when we got on Zoom calls, but I could tell they wanted it that way. They wanted to have something to be terrified of.
Yeah, it's really strange. I just don't.
We need to be chased by tigers. I don't know. I mean, it
maybe that's it. People need to fence. People need to
fence. I will say it's interesting. So Chicago is, we did have. I do remember we did have some pretty insane months, right? It's like I couldn't go out to eat for my birthday because I couldn't get in the restaurant without papers.
Really was
Lori
like
Lightfoot, Chicago. Yeah, the most dangerous thing you can do is dine. No, but it's. It's like I'm showing it here. We got the Munsters. The whole family got the coronavirus vaccine except you. I suppose I'm the pretty blonde now. Here's Kermit getting fat, March 2020, March 2021, and not going out. It's this weird kind of blend of, being afraid to do anything and desperate for something exciting.
Yeah, but it's a contained excitement because it's completely under control.
I mean, yeah, it's like an amusement park, except for when you get crushed, when you're at Astroworld.
Yeah, the roller coaster. Let's go again. Let's go again. Let's go again.
Yeah.
Bitch, we've been in lockdown for 12 months. I'm done with the roller coaster.
Yeah.
Again.
Yes.
Like, oh my God, can you guys find some other form of entertainment for the love of God? You're actually destroying our lives.
No, but there is an adrenaline addiction to this kind of. And so that's why I say, it's like whatever.
Oh, it was junkie behavior.
Oh, totally.
It was junkie behavior.
It's totally junkie behavior. Whatever Oster is wanting to be forgiven for, maybe this is it, right? You were addicted to this. It gave you purpose. It gave you strength. I could see that from the very beginning. My academic colleagues, generically, right? Suddenly, the first thing that happened once the lockdown were declared was we were flooded with emails saying research opportunities around this, particular disaster. It's like if we're ever in some kind of, the next disaster, just watch for the calls for papers, right? For the conference. Now we're saying they wouldn't need to censor, so we were wrong. Am I wrong? Right? And it's like this is, and the sad thing is, of course, we don't like fake life. We don't like watching movies and getting fake adrenaline hits. And going to amusement parks and getting everything. It's like we actually want to be riding horses, and yet we don't, right? It's like this weird kind of schizophrenia is we want to feel like we're in this massive, dangerous, exciting situations, which of course those of us who were standing up against mandates were. Right? I kind of miss it. It was exciting. I didn't know whether I was going to get thrown off campus from one day to the next. Now I have a little sign that I pray.
You were riding your own roller coaster.
That I pray next to, right? Yes, but I've also been warning people. Funny. It's like you cannot let yourself get addicted to whichever the most recent thrill was, because then you spend the rest of your life trying to regain it, right? Like if only it was still Woodstock in 1968.